There's two other bits that I'd add to the type of content. Is I think there's that people are really kind of attracted to. I think one is this real sense of authenticity, and we were talking about it as well. I mean, obviously, because anyone can create content, there is a lot of content out there. The more authentic that it comes across, either whether it's from a brand or from an artist, I think is kind of neither here nor there. But I think that's one thing. And the other piece I was going to say was also, particularly from a brand perspective, I think the work that Telstra is doing is interesting because it is all about that exclusive stuff. So it's the stuff that, you know, they go, like you said, 25 people in a hotel room, busting their balls, trying to do something that's different, that's not freely available, and all that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of interesting as well. So the exclusivity side of it's important as well.
And obviously that you know, that adds costs and production and so on, and we'll come to that, I guess, in a minute.
Yeah.
But Danny, sort of from your point of view, you know, where are you finding audiences now? Because you're, at the end of the day, you're there to buy the right audience for the right brands and at the right price as well, which is increasing need as least as possible, I guess. So, you know, where are you going to actually sort of aggregate those audiences?
Look, it's a very interesting time for a media agency in terms of the role of a media agency. If you think about the role of a media agency even 5 years ago to what it is today and what it will become, it's very difficult to compare the two. It's a very busy space. Lots of people in this space now who traditionally weren't in the media buying game, and that will only continue. That's a good thing. The challenge that we have is there's no shortage of content. There's a lot of content. It's finding the good content, and we look at the future and think, right, okay, well, more and more clients are moving towards a obvious ROI. So I invest $1 million. What do I get back? That puts big pressure on the TV networks, particularly, whereas we used to sponsor shows like The Block, MKR, Big Brother, etc. And we still do. We invest hundreds of millions of dollars into those shows. But more and more, it's becoming difficult to sit in front of a client and say, this is what you got from the return. A lot of clients have been Googleized, digitized in terms of that cost per acquisition, cost per click. A lot of CMOs, you know, they've said publicly or privately to us, I'm re-interviewed for my job every quarter when I sit in front of the board and say, this is where I invested the company money. So when you say, hey, we're working with these guys, they've got this great content, there's 6,000 people watching it, but it's really engaging and all the rest of it, that makes it difficult. So what we've got to get better at, and the guys who sell the content have got to get better at, is explaining who that audience is and going deeper. So, you know, our mantra is right person, right time, right environment, right message at the right price. And, you know, we'd much sooner now speak to a media owner who could say, here are 1,000 people who are looking at this particular product right now, or are engaged with this brand right now, than someone saying we've got 100,000 people and we don't really know what they are.
You're a digital business, you know, you make your dollars and dimes based on, you know, people viewing things online and advertisers actually getting on board. What are you seeing, you know, not just in Australia, but actually globally, and where Australia sits within the global context in terms of marketers coming on board and agencies actually transferring sort of dollars over towards a platform like Vevo?
Well, I think the biggest change that we've seen in the last 18 months, and this is more talking now about Europe and the US, and honestly, I don't know if this is just we've got a whole lot better at what we do, or if the market attitude has changed, is much more in partnership, much more working around, I mean, to Danny's point, you know, it's all very well saying, hey, we've got, you know, 8 billion video views and 250 million users a month on Vevo globally, you know, have a piece of that. But, you know, I mean, we wanted to move towards partnership. So 2 years ago in the UK, we did our first £1 million deal, and that was with Toyota, and we took £1.4 million off Channel 4. So it was literally a complete spend that they took away from Channel 4 and they gave to Vevo. And we spent a year going, how the hell are we going to manage this, and how the hell are we going to deliver what they want, to make sure at the end of that year they want to come back and spend, you know, 1.8 next year or whatever it's going to be and work with us again. And I think for us, it was all about better understanding that sponsorship doesn't mean, sticking an ad on, sticking a logo somewhere or sticking an ad on the beginning or at the end, and actually working out about what the challenges are for the client and what they want to achieve.
How are you finding that you're discovering things now? What are you turning to sort of find where you want to consume your content, if that's changed at all?
I think the main thing is that, I kind of mentioned it before, because everyone can create content, that, there is just an absolute barrage of stuff out there. So I think we go to trusted sources, and invariably those trusted sources are friends and people that are close to us, right? So I think the notion of, I was going to talk about Facebook, but it's not just about Facebook, but all sorts of social media has really changed the dynamic of where great content really comes from. And I think even if you think about the streaming services that exist, the way that they're kind of tied in with the social profile and the social map, I think is really interesting. So I think most of the content that I find comes from my immediate social circle, and actually, a very close social circle rather than everything that comes down in my news feed. So I think that's a big shift, and it's a big challenge and a big opportunity, I think.
And Ryan, to you on this one, because you guys are probably doing a lot of unexpected stuff, right, with content. And if I sign up for a Telstra contract, I'm not necessarily expecting to get served up AFL, NRL, ARIA clips and all the rest of it. So how are you sort of going about getting that and expanding that to a wider audience?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in what Sudeep just said, and I think we get pitched different ideas by different companies of different apps that, oh look, just do this app and give us some of that AFL content and it'll find you this whole new community of people. And I'm just a big believer that those communities already exist and are already aggregated. So we're doing everything we can. We have a great partnership with Snappy TV that just do amazing cutting, instantly publishing to any platform you want. Right, they're out of the Valley. They were acquired by Twitter actually this year. And at one point at the start of the year with AFL, their international we were right at the top of any publisher globally in terms of how that content was being consumed with videos over Twitter. And we've really pushed that angle hard across both music, what we did with the Arias last night, just because it's relevant. That's where we think the audiences are, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. But all those big aggregate platforms is where we'll push to those because it is where they're trusted sources, number one. We obviously maintain our own platforms with the app and the websites and things like that, but you have to be where the conversation is, and you've got to be there with good, quality, relevant content.
I guess that then begs the question as well of what is actually premium content now?
All we want to produce is make sure it's of a high enough quality. I think the artists themselves look after the premium nature of it, but then that doesn't mean that you can't produce something that looks like it's almost created amateurly, because there's a great deal of benefit for some music genres to appear very grungy and very grainy. So I think the idea that it's official and that it's high quality to that end makes it premium. I mean, the issue for a YouTube where they have so much UGC is, a far harder place for people to work out what's real and what's not real. I think our point, the fact that we're owned by the labels, was very much about, that it's official, that it's real, that it's, I guess in that sense it's premium. I think whatever people want to watch is premium to some degree, and the level of appetite or desire people have to consume something still comes down, in my view, to the creative quality of it. And as I said, there's, you look at some of the channels on YouTube, and there's suddenly, how come this cooking show's got millions and millions of views? Well, let me tell you, when you meet these people, they are so passionate about what they do. They're such great communicators that's why there's millions of people there. It's not that it's because it's on YouTube. It's just the same as a great TV program, or a great video. It's like, that's what draws people in. And if that ad is the ad that everybody wants to watch, then good on whoever created it, because clearly they've created something that captures the mood of people at one time and they want to share it.
We continually ask the question of media owners to define premium. I think sometimes it gets defined as safe. We've all had horrific experiences, and journals love to point out when an ad appears on a dodgy site, and then we get our ass kicked from a network, from a client. But content and ownership of content and bringing brands to content is really, really important for us.
I think the model on paying for music will, my girl Tay Tay those types of things will continue to happen. More artists will follow there, and the model will evolve.
You will see the model change
Yeah.
dramatically in the next 2 years. I
Yeah.
promise you, you will see a massive, massive change. There's a whole bunch of deals in the market that are coming up to renewal, and they will not be renewed. And it's going to be very
Yeah.
interesting to see what happens.